right, hey, welcome back into the 7th episode of the Bulldozer Fantasy Football Podcast. Took a week off just for, Mother's Day and got a couple other things going on, but I'm back. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to be doing about an episode a week throughout the summer, and then we actually might start ramping it up to two or maybe even three. Depends on what's going on during the season, because I definitely want to give you, some advice throughout that, but that's a ways off. We're not there yet. But we've got some stuff to go over in the seventh episode. We had the Traders Paradise draft just go down about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. So we've got some content to go through with that. The first round was kind of stock, some things you expected, maybe some stuff you didn't, but we'll run through all of that in this episode, and then there's a little bit of news and notes, not too big of a mailbag, nothing crazy. It's mostly hype pieces coming out right now. Michael Thomas is a wide receiver one narrative back out there. James Washington signed with the Cowboys. That might be like the most noteworthy thing going on right now. The hype pieces are definitely starting to come out. Trey Lance looks more accurate. It's really whatever you want to believe and whatever you don't want to believe. It's pick and choose season. Because, you can go ahead and say, I absolutely love Trey Lance, and yeah, he is getting more accurate, or you can be like, they're trying to trade him, don't listen to it, things like that. So take it with a grain of salt. Take everything that's coming out right now with a grain of salt. Every rookie looks like amazing, looks incredible, looks like the next big thing. Of course, to the coaching staffs, they can't say anything bad about their new guys. Why would they? If anything bad does come out, then maybe listen to that, because they don't have any reason to say anything unless if it's actually true. But in that light, but any good stuff right now, definitely just don't look at it too harshly or too crazily right now. But we'll dive into the mailbag before we jump into the rookie draft. We'll see how much we can get through that. I'll probably do the first round for sure, and then maybe highlight some second round picks, and then if anything crazy happens down the line with any of these third or fourth rounders, then it's we'll bring it up then. But for right now, it's kind of what it is. The mailbag is kind of small. The first question is, I pawn you 7. Can't wait for the next episode. Which pick surprised you the most in the Traders draft? The most surprising pick, I don't think, I don't know, because I don't want to harsh on anyone's mellow. I don't want to be, that's a bad pick, because right now we don't know anything about these guys. Who knows? Jahmyr Gibbs was only picked 4 picks after Bijan, and, we've been touting Bijan well ahead of Gibbs for the longest time, but who knows how this draft turns out. If Gibbs ends up better than Bijan, everyone's going to be like, I knew it. But no, we didn't. We've been touting Bijan as the number 1 overall pick. But most surprising. I would say it's between 2. I think maybe Jonathan Mingo over Zay Flowers. Mingo at 9 is kind of interesting to me, and we'll dive into that a little bit more when I go and analyze the picks and maybe why it happened. But as far as the real big selection that kind of surprised me was Will Levis at 12. And I'll explain that as well. But the guy who took him, I didn't think he needed quarterback too badly, so I expected Levis to keep sliding. So maybe he sees something that we don't, or maybe he's just sucking up all that quarterback value, because in a super flex league, I guarantee you Levis is going to be valuable next season if, Tannehill's down or out, and, they're going to be starting Levis, so I'm sure his value will only shoot up from that 112, I guess, but we'll dive into that a little bit more when we get into the analysis of the draft. I don't want to ruin anything right before I get into it. And then next question is from Heath Christensen. How did you approach having the top 2 wide receivers on the same team? Or how do you approach having the top 2 wide receivers on the same team? Also, what are your thoughts on New Orleans this year? Does getting Carr actually improve the skill players, Kamara suspension, Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill, Jamal Williams, etc.? They have some interesting pieces. Not sure I trust any of them. this is like kind of two questions, so let me answer the first part first. How do you approach having the top two wide receivers on the same team? Um, I'm assuming that's Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And if you've got those two, then I mean, I would just hold. I wouldn't approach it too crazily, different than what I'm expecting. Um, yeah, there's no other receivers that are going to be doing that. You can't really trade any of those two guys for anything, so just hold. So approach it with that. If you have those two, you're in a good spot, no matter what's going on at the other positions, in my opinion, because you've got those two guys playing for the next 7 to 10 years easy. And then, okay, so let's get into the Saints question. Does getting Carr actually improve the skill players? I think worst case scenario, they're safer. You've got Carr coming in, so I think at the end of the day now Carr is going to be able to keep Kamara. We'll hop into the suspension talk in a second, but I don't believe in Michael Thomas. I don't believe in Taysom Hill. I think Jamal Williams is fine. I think Olave is fine. I think Kamara is going to be just fine after he gets back from the suspension. I think Kendre Miller will fill in, but he won't do what Kamara does, obviously. So I think Carr doesn't necessarily improve them. I think it gets them closer back to those like prime days with Breeze. Now it depends on what the coaching staff does with these guys, and maybe they ramp up the play calling and kind of make it a little more diverse and get the ball into the playmakers' hands a little bit better. But Olave is just fine. Kamara, I think, is a buy right now if you're a contender. Taysom Hill, I don't see anything with him. I'd sell Michael Thomas if anyone's believing this hype at this point. It's just a complete lie over and over every season. But we'll see if he recovers and does what he does. But I would also buy Jamal Williams on the low too, because it's not really too low right now because Kamara's suspended supposedly, but that suspension isn't even out there yet either. So we'll see if that's even. Most people assume it's going to be 6 games. Man, will it be crazy though if it's only like 2 or 3, because then it's Kamara's right back into that top 12 running back status. So, anyways, we'll see what happens with Carr. I personally think Carr is kind of underrated, but at the same time, he's not. He's accurately rated. Who am I saying to say he's underrated? He's accurately rated, but you know what you're getting with him. He's a decent quarterback. He's brought the Raiders to the playoffs before. They kind of spurned him. He's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. I fully expect Carr to do just fine in New Orleans against the NFC South. He'll put up enough points for these guys to have some relevancy in fantasy for sure. So trade for him right now if anybody's not believing in him, and hold him if you've got him. So unless if it's Michael Thomas, get rid of him. But anyways, let's dive into this draft rundown. It's a simple 12-team Superflex tight end premium rookie draft. I'm going to analyze each of the first-round picks for sure. I'll highlight some of the second-round crazy ones. I might dive into that second round maybe in the next episode if people are still wanting to hear about it. But obviously the first pick is, Bijan Robinson. It's the stock 101 pick. Nothing too crazy, nothing you didn't expect really. I think the guy, non-soy boy, who was picking at 1, was probably having a hard time, in my opinion, taking Bijan. I know he was in trade talks with me. I know he was in trade talks with a few other of the guys to try and trade back and maybe get a quarterback. To kind of give you an analysis, let me pull up what his team looks like right now. Hold on. Yeah, all right. So I think he definitely avoided taking what his team needed and kind of went with best player overall, which is always the way that I like to draft. But non-soy boys team, he's got Tom Brady and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback and nobody else outside of that right now. And then he also has at running back CMC, Jerick McKinnon, Michael Carter, Kyron Williams. It's a little hard because they don't color him on here. But yeah, So he definitely didn't really need quarter or running back. He definitely needed quarterback more so. And, leading up to the draft, I know he was talking about trading back. Wasn't able to successfully get enough of a haul in his eyes. So he went ahead and just held true, selected Bijan. And then I think his plan is probably going to be to trade for some quarterback help in order to compete, but he'll be building around Bijan primarily. And then he's got a lot of 2024 picks, so he'll be just fine in next year's rookie draft. Maybe grab a quarterback then, but he definitely kicked the can down the road and took Bijan rather than trading back and trying to get a haul now. I think he was the right selection for him for sure. If he couldn't get enough for that 101 pick, but at the end of the day, CMC and Bijan, you can't be upset about trotting that out either. So the next pick was Bryce Young, who went to UNC Panther 44. I do wonder if he's a Panther fan because, quite honestly, I would not have taken Bryce Young at that pick. I think the consensus 102 right now is Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is just he's got that ceiling that these other guys do not have, and I think I've been over this. Like, if you're at that 102 to 104 range and you do need a quarterback, which you should be taking a quarterback in a super flex league, regardless of whether you need them or not, because they hold value better than these other guys, and there's less bust potential. I mean, even down like a year after Zach Wilson, he still had value. You could have traded him. Now, not so much now, but if these running backs or these wide receivers bust, you're definitely not going to hold value nearly as much as maybe the wide receivers, but not as much as the quarterbacks do. So that was quite honestly a surprise pick for me. So Bryce Young going at 2 doesn't scream elite ceiling to me. UNC Panther definitely needs quarterback. The only other quarterback he has is Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills. So I personally, I knew it was going to be a quarterback selection. I just was expecting Richardson. So I was happy because I have the 104 pick, which we'll get into that. But it only pushed talent down the board to the other people. So UNC Panther, I am hoping that you're not just picking because of your Panther fandom and that you believe in Bryce Young. But I just think he's a little small, and I don't know if he's going to necessarily succeed in the NFL with that size. The memes have already come out about him being surrounded by his O-line and looking just kind of tiny around him. And, we'll see. We'll see if it ends up being anything. But the third overall pick was also another surprise. So I guess this draft definitely had more surprises than I recalled initially. But the third overall pick, so I'm sitting right behind Bobby. Bobby's team, if you were to look at it, he has Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. So yes, you might say he doesn't need quarterback, but with that Murray injury, I was fully expecting him to take a quarterback. I was expecting Richardson to go again, just because, you have Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, and then if you were to slot in Anthony Richardson, the upside at that position is just immense. You'd be able to flip one of those for multiple picks and multiple, other needs. So I was definitely expecting him to go the route, but I think maybe he was burned by Malik Willis last year. So he went ahead, and I think he kind of selected a little bit more based off of team need because, he passed up C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson for JSN. So taking JSN to fit into his wide receiver room, which only had Keenan Allen, Jamison Crowder, Demarcus Robinson, Mike Williams, KJ Hamler, Laviska Shenault, David Bell, AJ Green, Julio Jones. From maybe 5 years ago, that wide receiver room sounds amazing, but right now, I think you're looking at it and you're going, okay, JSN was the right pick because you definitely needed receiver, and he's going to be in the league for a minimum of 7 to 10 years, producing, regardless of DK being on the same team. We've kind of learned that the NFL has progressed to a 2 wide receiver system minimum, with 3 possibly producing in an offense if it's a high volume passing offense. So I think Bobby definitely selected off need, but I think it's a safe pick. It should be just fine. He'll get juice out of that squeeze that he just made. So I don't think quarterback would have been the worst move. I definitely could have seen him taking it, but I think he kind of wants to keep competitive. So he went ahead and took the wide receiver because we do start a lot of flex players in this league. So I was up at the 104. It was my only pick when I started the draft, so that's kind of interesting. I did make a trade for a second round pick, and we can dive into that maybe if you guys are curious, but I was hoping for Anthony Richardson to fall to the 4th pick. I was severely trying to trade up to the 102 to select him. I was trying to trade up to the 103 at one point. And then I kind of, I guess, got lucky and had to just believe in it, just like the Colts did almost at their own 4 selection. So Anthony Richardson, immense ceiling. I've got Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy all on this team. So I definitely did not need quarterback, and I did contemplate going into the league or into this draft. Maybe taking Jahmyr Gibbs because immediately my need was running back. I've got wide receivers, have quarterbacks. Obviously, I was planning on taking a running back. Ended up realizing that you can just go ahead and draft value, trade for need, like every other analyst says. And I just this league is kind of hard to trade in sometimes. So even though it's named Trader's Paradise, so I didn't want to resort to just trading for need because sometimes you don't get what you want. But in this draft, I wanted Richardson no matter what. So getting him here at the 104 and over my number 1 quarterback in talent, C.J. Stroud, was, I know that's kind of weird to say, like, oh, my number 1 quarterback in talent, but I'm taking Richardson. I am aiming for the ceiling here by taking Richardson over Stroud. Whereas I know Stroud is going to have a safer floor. There is just as much bust potential with Stroud as there is with Richardson, because of the landing spots. So I personally just went with the guy I prefer. I think Richardson's going to definitely be running. He might be in the league a little less, but this is a low-dollar league. Grab the guy you want over what you think you should do. And Richardson being the 102 in ADP, quite honestly, just solidifies the fact that having him at the 104 is just value regardless. So anyways, I think what I'll probably end up trying to do is trade one of those backup quarterback situations that I've got for a running back just to solidify that, and then I'll be ready to roll for the season, and we'll be competing. So moving on to the 5 pick. This one was kind of a no-brainer with C.J. Stroud at 5 to Brandon Fish. His team kind of needed quarterback after he traded Josh Allen away. He's only got Matt Stafford of note, and now C.J. Stroud, of course. But, he's, in my opinion, he's kind of still in a rebuild because all it takes is Matt Stafford's injury concerns being an issue, and then he is down to starting just C.J. Stroud, who in his rookie season I do not see a lot of output because of that offense around him. So, temper your expectations, Brandon. I don't think you're going to be doing too hot with just Matt Stafford and C.J. Stroud at quarterback. Hopefully you're looking down the road to see what you can do. You've got good running backs. You've got good wide receivers. But I think Matt Stafford's injury concerns are definitely there. And C.J. Stroud isn't going to compete, quite honestly. So he'll compete, he'll play, he'll start, but he's not going to be putting up crazy stat numbers with the talent he's got around him. So temper your expectations for your season and look to next season and kind of see what you need. Number 6 pick was Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this is a great asset for Basement Beard to grab. He's in a win now mode. His team definitely, at the start of the draft, I was kind of wondering what he would be doing. But looking at it now, I think he's definitely going to be running for a championship pretty easily. He's got a decent team with Mahomes, Hurts, Tua at quarterback, and then he's got Zeke, Fournette, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, and now Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. He's got Cooper Kupp at wide receiver with T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk and Devonta Smith, Josh Dotson, and then he's also got a pretty good tight end in George Kittle. So I think Basement Beard's team is definitely one to watch for this upcoming season. He's going to be kind of a tear for sure. Him, Selk, Bull Train, of course. Those three are, and Non-Soy Boy, those are kind of concerning. And then we'll get into Skull Crusher's team as well, because that's a sneaky one down the line with his picks that he made. At 7, Brandon Fish was up again. I'm not sure exactly which one was his original pick. I think it was the 5. But so he selected Jordan Addison. I think he added two nice pieces in this draft with C.J. Stroud and Jordan Addison. I just think that they're going to take some time to develop a little bit. Addison's got Justin Jefferson on the squad, so my viewpoint is like, yes, you grabbed young, talented players that will be in the league for a very long time, but in fantasy, I'm always looking for the edge. I'm always looking for the outlier that kind of creates a talent or a positional deficit for the other teams, like Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews and things like that, like the Russian quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts. So with his picks, I don't think C.J. Stroud or Addison is that, and I personally would have went ahead and taken Johnston just for kind of a little bit more of a home run swing, just because Johnston does profile as that wide receiver one and could take over for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, because Mike Williams is always injured and Keenan is on his way out in an offense that does pass a little bit more than the Vikings, but he went with Addison. It's a safe bet. You're going to get a lot of production. He kind of looks like a Tyler Lockett in his younger years, in my opinion. Just solid route runner, gets open, isn't going to do anything wrong. He's going to make sure that the quarterback has safe hands to throw to. These all sound like great things, but then when you're lined up on the other side of the field of Justin Jefferson, it's like, okay, yeah, you might get soft coverage consistently, but how much of that is actually going to turn into fantasy production? And that's where it boils down to the outliers. Like, go for the big swing in these rookie drafts, because odds are some of these guys might not even be on your team, after year one, after year two. So you got to swing for the fences, go for that immediate production, and try and find that big value that you can flip for even more value maybe. And I think that's kind of where Brandon maybe messed up in that one. So then the 8th pick pops up, and this is kind of where I think the draft starts to get real interesting for some people. You've got Skull Crusher at 8. He was probably hoping for a better landing spot for Will Levis, I think, and maybe not as big of a slide for Will Levis, because his only quarterbacks of note are Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett. And again, I don't think Kenny Pickett is going to be that big of a guy in fantasy. And Watson used to be, but even now, like after everything that he's been through, I don't know if that's going to get any better. So maybe he could have used a third quarterback, but he went ahead and took best available, took Quentin Johnston for the Chargers, and he should be getting a pretty decent wide receiver to add to his group. I mean, he's got Tyreek, Kirk, Judy, and Deontay Johnson. So pretty formidable, solid depth for sure. And now he just added Quentin Johnston. So I think Skull Crusher's team sneakily got better in this draft. As long as Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson stay healthy, he should be able to compete now with those receivers and his running backs. And then, like I was saying earlier in the mailbag, big surprise at 9, Jonathan Mingo was taken. And at first I was looking at it without realizing who made the pick, and I was like, oh, that's not good. Now, if you look at Jonathan Mingo tape, he was kind of getting hyped. I was expecting him to be like a mid-second to late second, maybe early third-round pick in the rookie draft, but he went to Carolina, and Carolina kind of paired him with Bryce Young, and so then I looked at who took him, and it was UNC Panther at 9 who took Mingo. So he's kind of, I guess, trying to go with the cornerstone rebuild method, which is interesting. I mean, you've got Bryce Young, cornerstone quarterback, primarily, drafted 101, should be fine. They're going to, make the system around him, and then they've added Jonathan Mingo for him to throw to, because the other targets are Adam Thielen and Terrace Marshall and Marvin Jones, I think it is. Or no, DJ Chark. So, there's not many people to throw to. So I guess there is a path for Mingo to have some pretty good play in Carolina. But, I think it was a stretch taking him over Zay Flowers. And we'll hop into that next, because Flowers went immediately after Mingo. I don't think Calculated really took much time to run up to the podium on that one. Probably was expecting to decide between Kincaid and Levis, or Charbonnet, but ended up getting Flowers falling into his lap at 10. So Calculated took him, adds him to a receiving group that he already has Bateman and Andrews in on his team. So now he's definitely got the Baltimore pass catcher. I think he's going to have to probably trade one, if not two of those Baltimore pieces, but it might be hard to do so because then you got to call your shot. And it might feel nicer to just hold and get the right guy and then, eat your losses on the other two. So, now Baltimore does have a planned, uptick in passing volume, so that could help, but there's no way you can have Bateman, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews all on the same team and be starting them all each week and doing well. So, Calculated might not start them all, might trade one. We'll see what he does. If I know him, he'll probably trade. So we'll hop into Skull Crusher's next pick, who is up at 111. He, I think, had one of the sneaky good drafts because he got Johnson at 8, and then, for his team, if you look at it, he's got, like I said, Watson and Pickett, Barkley, Chubb, Pacheco, Hubbard, and that's it at running back. Okay, he could use a little depth at running back, I guess. Allen Robinson, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Van Jefferson, Justin Ross, so it kind of gets a little deeper. And then his tight ends are Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Taysom Hill, and that's it. So right now, I personally think that Skull Crusher took, Kincaid. It's a tight end premium. Evan Ingram's on that franchise tag. Kincaid can develop while you're still starting Evan Ingram. It's a solid pick for him for sure. And the hype coming out of Buffalo is that Kincaid's going to be running through the slot and be used as a slot receiver. So, yeah, if that's the case, I think Skull Crusher had probably one of the better drafts of everyone in here. And then the 12th pick, also another surprise, and I kind of alluded to it at the beginning. Will Levis going at 12. I don't think that Tom Pep needed to take Levis. I think it was more of like a value pick. I think he didn't maybe value the running backs as much. The receivers were all gone. Who do you take in the first round? So he took Levis and added him to, a group that's already got Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and now Will Levis. So, I mean, I guess you could say that he grabbed the right guy. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in Levis. I think stopping the slide was, okay by the Tennessee Titans, but it's not the best landing spot because it's a run-heavy offense that focuses on keeping games close and running the ball. So, I think Levis slid in the draft for a reason, and he's not going to be anything special. So, I personally probably would have taken, if I were Tom Pep, A-Chain or Charbonnet just to get some running back depth and keep competing. I know that wasn't necessarily his pick, and let's see, where did Tom Pep finish? He's 7, so could have added a running back and kept competing for sure. But anyways, that's probably all I'm going to dive into for the first round, since we're getting to that 30-minute mark, and I got we can jump into the second round and maybe some stuff that happened in the next episode. But I'm just gonna take a moment to throw out an announcement. We're gonna start taking members for a listener league. We're gonna be drafting on my birthday, July 1st, just because I get to choose. And what's better than to not start a draft on your birthday? But we'll be doing a Superflex tight end premium. It's going to be pretty straightforward. There's going to be a few different rules in there that I like to throw in. One big one that I'll definitely individually talk to people as they join. But it's going to be a 12 team league. Go ahead and message me on Twitter or wherever you can, and we'll start taking members in and putting them down on the roster and kind of explaining the rules to them and everything that we want for them to do. But for the most part, it's going to be pretty straightforward. It should be fun. It's going to be a slow draft, and then we'll be running it, as long as it goes. But first things first as well, if you've got anyone new to Dynasty, let me know, because I'll just, I guess, throw out the big rule that I'm going to do with everything. in this league. We're going to do 2 to 3 owners per team. That way we can have more people in it, and we can have more collaboration, more listeners obviously on here. That's always good. And then also you guys can, the one thing that I think personally about fantasy, and this is something that I read a while ago, is the reason that fantasy is so interesting to people is because, you're managing your own team, you get to make decisions, but how do you make that more interesting? Because anytime I talk to someone, I'm like, oh, I made this trade. They're like, oh, that's cool. But that's about it. That's really the only response you ever get. But now, if you have 2 to 3 team owners in a dynasty league, what you're doing is you're creating conversation. You're creating more of a dynamic of, okay, well, I like this player, I like that player, talking it out, making decisions together. You have someone to go back and forth with. Because if I message anybody else in my own leagues and I start talking to them about my team, they're not going to care. They're not going to listen. They're not going to be interested. And what ends up happening is every single owner is just invested into their own team. But if you have 3 owners per team, they can watch, the other league mates. They can watch certain rookies. You can kind of divide out the tasks. You can talk about trades. You can talk about free agency pickups. I personally think that adding a co-owner to any of my teams makes that team immediately more fun, because now I have someone to chat with about it. So that's going to be my one caveat for this league. I want everyone to have at least one person that they've got with them, maybe even more, and maybe even bring someone in that's not so used to Dynasty, not so sure about it, and maybe hasn't done it before and is learning, and you can kind of show them the ropes and kind of make them hesitant on making that big bold trade that we all did when we first started in Dynasty, because we were just excited to trade and have a new player that we were real hyped on, but then maybe didn't realize that it was messing us up. So that's the announcement. We'll dive into it. Message me. I'm going to start adding members. I might even reach out to some people if I don't get enough traction right away on it, but for the most part, I'm real excited for it, and we'll get it going. And I just appreciate everyone listening, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.